Welcome to the Filthy Heathens podcast. My name is Kirk. We got a great show for you today. I am just trying out something new, trying a new format, trying to see if maybe this works out better, see what the subscribers, what you guys think of it. So hopefully you guys like what I'm doing here and you guys are telling your friends and sharing this podcast. Basically, the theme of today's episode is going to be Democrats are evil. So I think I got a lot of proof for this, so we're going to go through a lot of the situations. Basically, we're going to go over many things that Democrats have been showing themselves to be evil at over the last, I want to say, at least last year, but definitely within the last couple weeks. We're going to go back and talk about Andrew Cuomo and how he is evil. Tammy Duckworth, Senators Tammy Duckworth and Mazie Hirono are both very evil people. And stupid too. They're really only famous because of how stupid they are. And all the while they're villainizing people who have actually done a great job in other parts of the country. The main culprit is Ron DeSantis in Florida. They are definitely trying to just demolish him, even though out of every governor in the country, he probably handled COVID the best. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over a lot of other things. We're going to go over Joe Biden's first press conference. That was a treat. And we'll also go over a little bit of the gun control debate. That kind of bleeds into the Joe Biden press conference a little bit. But let's go ahead and get started on the news of Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo, by far, has handled the COVID crisis the worst. Out of every governor in the country, he has handled it the worst. I say that with the evidence we have now. The evidence we have now, he has handled it the worst. He sent people back into nursing homes with COVID, recovering COVID patients back into nursing homes, which led to the deaths of thousands of more elderly in his state. He then tried to cover it up, and now we're finding out that those aren't the only things he did wrong. Now, like I was saying before, though, as of right now, he handled COVID the worst out of any governor in the country. We still don't have a lot of data from Michigan because the governor is actually blocking any Freedom of Information Act requests for nursing home deaths. So she could actually be the worst governor in the country, especially when it comes to COVID. She could end up being the worst governor, but we just don't have enough data on that yet. We have the data for New York, and by far, Andrew Cuomo is the worst governor in the country when it comes to COVID. I live in California. We're about to recall our governor. He is actually a really bad governor, but he's still well below. He's not as murderous. He's just completely incompetent and stupid. So let's get into Cuomo here. So this is from the Daily Wire. Cuomo directed officials to prioritize his family, including CNN's Chris Cuomo, for coronavirus testing. Let me just say the obvious. If this was Donald Trump and he had specifically prioritized his family being tested, like specifically made sure that his family was going to get tested for COVID before anybody else, that would have been headline news. That would have been another reason to impeach Trump. So that they would have impeached Trump for that, without a doubt. Cuomo does it, and it's barely a blip. The only way you can see that this came up is because you have right-wing media like the Daily Wire coming out and saying, oh yeah, this came up, and they're blowing it up. There was like 30 seconds of it on CBS, and that was it. So this is what we're getting from our media right now. So let's get into it a little bit. So high-level members of the State Department of Health were directed last year by Governor Andrew Cuomo and Health Commissioner Dr. Howard Zucker to conduct prioritized coronavirus testing on the governor's relatives, as well as influential people with ties to the administration. That was reported by the Times-Union. Members of the Cuomo's family, including his brother, his mother, and at least one of his sisters, were also tested by top health department officials, some several times. So remember, a year ago when this all started, these tests were being prioritized. For people who, I live in California. I have people who I worked with who were a little bit concerned because they had bad allergies and they got a cold around the same time as all this blew up. So last March and April. And they would call their doctor and say, "Hey, I want to come in and get tested." And their doctor would say no. Because you have at the time I think there was only 3 symptoms that they knew for sure were coronavirus. So what they said was you had to have all 3 or you weren't coming in for the test. You stay home, quarantine yourself, and if it passes in a couple days, it's a cold, and if it gets worse, give us a call back, then we'll come in and test you. That is a real situation that has happened to people I work with. So this is at the time when these tests were very, you had to be very selective. The governor of New York prioritized his cronies and his family over everybody else. This is the definition of corruption. So I don't know why this isn't getting a bigger push, especially since he has, I think it's 6 women now who've accused him of sexual harassment. He has a person in his administration who has outed him as killing grandmas, thousands of people, and covering it up. And this is not getting as much traction. So, and this isn't just the Daily Wire reporting this. You have ABC, a local ABC affiliate, who, you have to remember, Governor Cuomo withheld nursing home COVID data over Trump fears, office confirms. So he is covering up deaths that he caused. He is allegedly sexually harassing various female members of his staff over the last, how long has he been governor? Let's say at least 4 to 6 years. And now we find out that during all this time, he made sure that he prioritized his family to make sure that they were getting tested, when we really should have been focused again on the elderly, because at the time that was the only demographic we knew this virus was going to attack and hurt badly. And he did everything he could to kill grandma. So we have more evidence, and I don't know how this is not getting more and more traction, because he is seriously just the worst governor in the country. He has not been doing a great job. He has been doing everything wrong. And again, going back to some of my previous videos, he is getting rewarded. He got an Emmy for his news briefings. Hollywood loves this guy. So just keep in mind, when you get Hollywood endorsements, that should be a red flag. If somebody's getting a Hollywood endorsement, that's a red flag. You cannot trust the people in Hollywood because they love somebody like Andrew Cuomo, someone who is killing grandma and covering it up, all the while sexually harassing his staff. So that's part one. So that's just the latest scandal for Andrew Cuomo. And I'm gonna follow up. I haven't had a chance to really look at follow up and see what the impeachment proceedings are looking like in his state. I really hope they're going to keep going, but it's hard to get any kind of traction on an impeachment when the media is not paying attention. So, politicians, you have to remember, everybody's very self-interested, and these politicians aren't going to waste their political capital on something that they can't get out to the people and really explain what's going on. So that's on Andrew Cuomo. That's number one proof. Democrats are evil. Let's move on to more evil. So, Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth and Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono, they changed course on Biden nominees after assurances on AAPI representation. Among 15 cabinet secretaries, there are no Asian Americans or Pacific Islanders, although recently confirmed Trade Representative Catherine Tai is the first from the community in that role. Now, I'm all for making sure that you get the best qualified candidate, and if that person happens to be from a minority group, great. That's fantastic. Not a problem. The problem is that why do you have to backtrack on this? So let's read this a little bit. Senator Tammy Duckworth, Democrat of Illinois, reversed course on vowing to object to President Joe Biden's nominees because of lack of Asian American and Pacific Islander representation Tuesday evening, after spokesperson from her office said she had received assurances from the Biden administration. What she said was that she would not vote for any person that was white unless they were gay. So that is racism, plain and simple. Now, and then to double down, Mazie Hirono comes out and says the same thing. Says, no, I'm not going to vote for anybody who's white. We have two Democratic senators who have voiced proudly their blatant racism. And again, they're perfectly fine. It's not going to harm them at all. These people are evil. Racism is evil. If you're going to judge somebody based on the color of their skin, that is the definition of racism. And the fact that they have not really been called out or been called on to resign, it just shows that it's a waste of time. The media won't get behind that. I mean, again, going back, imagine Ted Cruz came out and said, I'm not going to vote for anyone who is gay, or I'm not going to vote for anyone who is black. If Ted Cruz has said that, which he never has, but if Ted Cruz has said that, he'd be gone. The Republicans would say, you can't have that. That's not happening. And they'd force him to resign. This would be front page news for weeks until he resigned. However, you can have two blatant racist statements from two sitting U.S. senators and not a damn thing happens. These people are crazy. And what she needed was just some reassurances. Oh yeah, we'll get some people who are Asian or Pacific Islanders. I don't care what race they are. If you come out and say that you are going to vote for people based on the color of their skin, you're a racist and you're evil. So all this time, we now have a governor of the state of New York who is covering up the people that he killed. We have two sitting U.S. senators that are Democrats actively saying that they will use race as a factor in voting for nominees. We already have people in the House of Representatives who we know hate Jews, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. They're just blatant anti-Semites. So we already have that. But to gloss all over this, so remember, to make sure that they're not focusing on this stuff, you have the media making sure they're trying to destroy Republicans that are actually doing a good job. So moving on, again, to the Daily Wire. The data proves it. Florida's COVID response was superior to New York and California. So the way the states work out as far as population goes, the four most populous states in the country are California, Texas, New York, and Florida. And at this time I'm not sure if New York has more people or Florida. It's really close. So we have all the data here that shows that Florida has actually handled the COVID crisis the best. I think they locked down for a little bit, but they prioritized seniors, and they reopened at the end of last April or the middle of last May. So they reopened last year, and they've been open and gradually been opening more. I believe they've gotten rid of all mask mandates now. It's spring break time, so they are welcoming people. But just the data shows it. So the numbers don't lie on this. They have been doing better. So when you break it down, so basically by population size, according to 2019 data from the U.S. Census Bureau, Florida is among the country's most populous states with almost 21.5 million residents. Now, compared to other populous states, Florida has the largest proportion of elderly residents, with almost 4.5 million people aged 65 years or over. That means that almost 21% of Florida's population is considered high risk for COVID-19 based on age alone. We are now finding out right now that the next biggest factor for COVID deaths is obesity. So if you're old and fat, you're probably going to die from COVID if you get it. That is astounding. So in contrast, as far as the age goes, in New York, only 17% of the population is over 65 or older, and California, 15% over the age of 65. Now, according to the CDC, those aged 65 and over are most at risk when it comes to hospitalization or death due to COVID-19. Those between the ages of 65 and 74 are 35 times more likely to be hospitalized with COVID-19 compared to 5 to 17-year-olds. So the likelihood of death due to COVID-19 is much higher for those for people that are elderly. And Florida has a much higher elderly population. However, as we keep going through here, you're going to notice something is that the death rate between New York and California and Florida are virtually all the same. So Florida has a much older population, and California and New York have a much younger population, but they're basically the same. The main difference, though, New York and California stayed locked down, and Florida did not. Florida opened back up. So basically, there was almost no advantage to the lockdowns. The lockdowns end up being basically what they were supposed to do. They were meant to keep the emergency rooms and the healthcare facilities open to try to slow that spread, and that's what they were meant to do. But instead, they were used for other purposes. Now, in terms of raw count, and we'll go back to the article here, in terms of raw count, Florida has 2.1 million reported cases of COVID-19. This places them third in the nation, with California having 3.65 million cases and Texas having 2.76 million cases. That makes sense considering the population. So California has more people, they're going to have more cases. Texas has more people than Florida, they're going to have more cases. Same thing with Florida. Florida has more people, they're going to have more cases. So you can't expect 2 million people to get COVID in Idaho when there's only 1.5 million people there. So, however, when you adjust for population size, which you need to do to give a really fair comparison, the rankings change. Florida has 9,178 cases per 100,000, while New York City alone has 9,560 cases per 100,000. The rest of New York has 8,944 cases per 100,000. New Jersey has 9,749 cases per 100,000 population. So, in fact, Florida is ranked 30th, and it's ranked 39th if you exclude New York City from the New York totals. But overall for the state, 30th in terms of case per rate per 100,000 people. So North Dakota, South Dakota, Rhode Island, Utah, Tennessee, Arizona, Oklahoma, Iowa, Arizona, Wisconsin, Nebraska, South Carolina, Alabama, Kansas, Mississippi, Indiana, Idaho, Georgia, Nevada, New Jersey, Montana, Illinois, Wyoming, New York City, Delaware, Texas, Louisiana, Kentucky, and Missouri all have higher case rates per 100,000 people per. They basically are worse than Florida. They did worse than Florida. Now, what we're really getting at when it comes to COVID, what we should really be focused on is how many people are dying. That is actually really what matters, because we're trying to save lives. That's the whole point of this thing. We're trying to save lives, so we have this very novel virus that we didn't know what to do with. So we wanted to make sure we were protecting as many people as possible, not overloading our healthcare system. That was what we were sold last year. Now, in terms of raw count, Florida has 32,778 deaths from COVID-19. This places them fourth in the nation, with California having 57,744 deaths, New York having 49,000, and Texas having 47.5 deaths. When you again adjust for population size, the rankings change again. Florida has 152 deaths per 100,000. New York City alone has 365 deaths per 100,000. The rest of New York has 168 deaths per 100,000. New Jersey, where my parents live, my parents and my sister and my niece and nephew, they live in New Jersey. 272 deaths per 100,000. The state of Illinois has 184 deaths per 100,000. So when you compare Florida which is effectively a red state. It's kind of a purple state, but it's effectively a red state. They are doing better. The number of deaths per 100,000 is better than almost every other blue state. So, and you have to remember too, they have the second oldest population in the country compared to these other blue states, which have much younger populations. I believe California is the 5th youngest population in the country. So if they are doing basically the same, that means Florida is doing better. Now, when it comes to vaccines, that's the end game here. So I've said this in a couple other videos. Once every adult is vaccinated, this thing is over. We're done. All right? There shouldn't be any more mask mandates. There shouldn't be any more anything. All right? COVID is over as soon as every adult is vaccinated. Or every adult that wants to be vaccinated is vaccinated. Once that's done, it's done. It's over. We're done with this disease. We should be getting back to normal. Now, according to the CDC, a total of 83,900,000 people have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in the U.S. So that's about a little over 25% of the total population. 45.5 million have been fully vaccinated, amounting to about 13.7% of the population. Florida has administered a total of 8,250,717 doses, with a rate of 38,415 doses administered per 100,000 population. This is more than Texas and just a little bit behind California. Now, me living in California, let me give you a little anecdotal evidence here. I don't think California really knows what they're doing, because I know they prioritized a little bit the seniors and and people who are in healthcare, because a cousin of mine is a nurse. My in-laws are over the age of 65. They all got vaccinated right away, which is fine. I'm cool with that. That's great and all, but somehow, even though I'm a bit older than my wife got the vaccine. I have not been approved to get my vaccine yet. So it's a little bit weird, but I don't really think they know what they're doing. I do know that Florida has prioritized 100%. They prioritized the essential workers, basically the healthcare workers, the people that are always going to be in contact with people who have COVID. And then they prioritize the elderly. So we know that. However, you also have to remember this as well. If you're prioritizing a certain group of people rather than just giving it out willy-nilly, you're probably going to lag behind a little bit as well. Now, Florida is ahead of multiple states when it comes to the vaccination of 65 years or older, which should be the priority. Elderly, and now we know people who are obese. So especially the elderly that are overweight, they should be the ones that are the highest risk. They should be the ones getting it first, and that's what Florida did. They prioritized the elderly people. Now, in this age category, basically people over the age of 65, Florida has a rate of 124,816 doses administered per 100,000. That is better than California. That's better than New York. It's better than Pennsylvania, and it's better than New Jersey. So the reality is that Florida is actually the model state for how COVID should have been handled. You can go to other states and say, well, really, there should have been never any lockdowns. There should have been no changes whatsoever. If you want to make that case, fine. I'm a little bit more of, okay, if we had locked down for 6 weeks and then ended it, that's about it. Maybe if you want to go 8 weeks, that would have been fine too. But that's it. It really should have ended last summer. But Florida really is the gold standard for how COVID should have been handled. And of course, Democrats are doing everything they can to villainize Ron DeSantis, because if they can make sure he doesn't win re-election for governor in that state, then that completely removes him from the conversation of running for president in 2024. And if there's somebody you don't want to have Kamala Harris run against, and yes, it's going to be Kamala Harris, it's not going to be Joe Biden. I'm really at the point where with Joe Biden, and I'll go over this a little bit later, January 4th, 2023. Put that on your calendar. That is the over-under date for Joe Biden resigning. That's the day after the next Congress takes office. and that gives Kamala Harris plenty of time to take over the position and get herself ready to get some big wins legislatively and then run for president. So that's what I think is that's the over-under, January 4th, 2023. They need to hurt Ron DeSantis as much as they can. They need to bloody him up as much as they can because he is a real threat. As I've said in my previous videos, he is Trump. He's Trumpism without Trump. So all the good things that people like me liked about Trump, he is that, but he doesn't have any of the same problems that Trump has. So he is not, he doesn't have he doesn't just go on and on where Trump tries to make the same case and just meanders and says the same thing over and over. He's very clear, he's very concise, and on top of that, he's actually doing the best job when it comes to COVID. He's doing better than any other governor, any other state. Now, moving away from Democrats being evil because they either are killing grandmas and covering it up, sexually harassing their staff, or making sure their friends and family can get tested for a deadly disease before anybody else. We were told by Joe Biden last year while he was campaigning for president that he was not coming after our guns. Well, that turns out to be another huge lie. So the New York Times is reporting the White House weighs executive orders on gun control. So a day after President Biden called on Congress to pass a new assault weapons ban and tougher background checks, the administration was considering steps it could take without legislation. Now, if you go back to a Democratic debate when Joe Biden still hadn't wrapped up the nomination, he said, no, we have to do this through legislation, and we have to do this right because it's a constitutional right. So that's what he was saying. He was making sure he ran to the middle, and he was not coming after our guns. He even called a person who was going to vote for him a liar when he said, "You're going to come after my guns." So it still surprises me how he got away with some of the stuff he said to voters when during, and somehow he was this kind and friendly guy when he's basically just Democrat Trump. Only he's more senile. And I'll get to his senility here in a second. So basically what we're seeing is that Joe Biden actively is considering taking your guns away. I don't get it. I don't get how people aren't understanding that this is first of all, it's a campaign promise by him. He said he wasn't coming after our guns. He lied. Second of all, this is a constitutional right that we've had for over 200 years. There is clear court cases, Supreme Court precedents on this. We have the Heller decision. We have the McDonald decision. There is clear, it's clear. We have a basic fundamental right to own firearms, to keep and bear arms. This is a personal right. But you have a president who is considering just by signing a piece of paper saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to remove that right from you." So you can take a look at this here. We already know this, and this is on the heels. This is around the same time Reason magazine has come out. If I can get this to come up. Where are you, Reason? See if I can pull this up here. So basically the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is basically the federal appeals court. So right underneath the Supreme Court. They're the court that basically you appeal here, and then if you want to appeal, you go to the Supreme Court. They basically said the right to bear arms does not extend beyond your doorstep. Well, that's just ridiculous because it's a right to keep and to bear. So that is two separate rights. So you have the right to keep and the right to bear arms. Keeping the gun in your, in a safe in your house is not bearing the weapon. So this is ridiculous, and I don't know what is going on with Reason.com right now. It's driving me crazy here. Anyway, but as you can tell, you also have, so at the same time you have the courts saying, yeah, you're that basic fundamental right you have, in the Second Amendment, yeah, it really isn't that great. We're going to kind of eat away at it. You have the current executive saying he's going to just write off your gun rights. We also know that the person who could be a tie-breaking vote in the Senate for gun control, Kamala Harris, she was actively saying she said this to Joe Biden during a debate. Yes, you can. She goes, why can't you say yes, we can to just eliminating gun rights altogether, just banning certain types of weapons? What people are not understanding is that when you when you sign executive orders, when you have these executive orders, in this case especially, is overnight, with just a stroke of a pen, making millions of people criminals. You're taking people who were once law-abiding citizens and you're immediately making them criminals. That's what's going on. Joe Biden is doing it. The courts are trying to do it. And it's, if you want a civil war, this is how you get a civil war. Tell a bunch of people you're going to confiscate their property and you're going to confiscate their only ability to defend their own property and themselves against any kind of threat. That is how you get a civil war. So, moving on. We're going to talk about Joe Biden and his press conference. Joe Biden did terrible at his press conference. I don't care what, I'm going to show you two examples of why Joe Biden was awful. I watched this whole thing, and I'm just going to give two examples. I can't go any further because at this point it's just beating a dead horse. There is something not right with our president. He is weak on foreign policy. He is weak on immigration, and he is weak in the mind. I don't know what is going on with him. Well, I do know what's going on with him. I'm just not a doctor, and I'm not going to diagnose someone like that. But I'm going to play for you something that it was the first thing I saw. It was the first thing I saw. I hadn't watched the whole press conference yet. This was the only thing I had seen because I was on a break from work, and I just thought, I'll start watching it. And this is what I saw. So I'm going to play for you the couple of minutes here that I saw.
I know you haven't had a chance to address the tragedies in Georgia and Colorado. You had said to stay tuned for actions that you might take on gun control. Wondering if you've made a decision either about sending the manufacturer liability bill that you had promised on day one to Capitol Hill, or executive actions like going after ghost guns or giving money to cities and states to battle gun control.
All the above. It's a matter of timing. As you've all observed, successful presidents, better than me, have been successful in large part because they know how to time what they're doing. Order it. Decide in priorities.
Timing.
What needs to be done.
Seriously?
The next major initiative is, and I'll be announcing it Friday in Pittsburgh in detail, is to rebuild the infrastructure, both physical and technological infrastructure of this country, so that we can compete and create significant numbers of really good paying jobs.
What in the fuck does that have to do with gun control? He lost his train of thought. He had no idea what the question was anymore. He was asked a specific question about gun control and immediately went to talk about infrastructure. he's gone. I don't know what is going on here. And this goes on for another at least 2 minutes, where he just goes on and he starts talking about education and how we need to invest in better ventilation in schools. And he just keeps going on, and he was asked a question about gun control. And you're going to see this too. If you go on Twitter, if you go on Facebook, if you go anywhere, you will see this over and over and over. He is being defended by the media. I saw somebody who an opinion journalist at, I think it's the Washington Post, where she said that Biden did great. He gave a stunning performance and the media embarrassed themselves. Any member of the media who thought Biden gave a stunning performance at this press conference, if they're a member of the media, yes, they embarrassed themselves by thinking that, writing it, anything like that. If you think Joe Biden gave a stunning performance at this press conference, you are an idiot, or you're deluding yourself. So that right there, you can see there's something wrong. But if you want just a quick video to basically sum up what happened here,
we're going to get a lot done. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot done. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot done.
So remember when we used to have a president that, even though he rambled and said a lot of mean things, he could actually put two sentences together and he actually knew what he was talking about. But, we didn't like the color of his skin or his mean tweets, so we sent him away. The reality is that this is our president. And at this point, it really feels like this is senior abuse. This guy should not be in this position at all. And it's really scary because you're seeing things. You had a Chinese delegation come to Anchorage, Alaska, and told our Secretary of State that the U.S. does not have the ability to negotiate from a stature of strength, from a position of strength. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if our delegation had gone to China and said, "You guys don't have the ability to talk to us as though you're a strong country. But get the fuck out of here with that shit." Can you imagine if we had gone, and that would have been a huge story. We had a delegation from the Chinese government come to us and tell our top diplomat to pound sand, that we don't care what the U.S. thinks. That would have never happened under Trump. And we all know that, Joe is owned by China. We know that from the documents from Hunter Biden's laptop. And it just goes to show right now that our delegates are getting pushed around because China knows they don't have to respect Joe Biden at all. They don't have to respect our current administration at all, and they can get away with this for at least the next 3.5 years. So that is really sad to see. But that video right there sums up how that press conference went. It's sad to see our country go through that, but this is what we warned you about. And if you voted for this, if you voted for Joe Biden, you owe America an apology. So that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, I am trying to build this as much as I can. Like I said, I'm going to be trying new things. This is episode 11. So I just got done with episode 10 last week. This is episode 11. I'm I'm going to try new things probably every 10 episodes. If I like the certain format that I'm doing, I'll stick with it. If not, I'll try to change it up a little bit. I might go back to how I was doing before. But let me know what you think. Leave me a comment in the video, and make sure you share this with your friends. If you think I'm full of shit, definitely share it with your friends. I don't mind being made fun of. I have an older brother. I'm used to being made fun of. If you like what I'm saying, if you like the content, please make sure you like the video, number one, and then share it with your friends and let them know, hey, this guy is not bad. So, other than that, if you do want to support my work, if you do want to give me your money, I have a locals page. It's filthyheathens.locals.com. Go to that page and subscribe. It's I believe I have it set at $5 a month. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to support my work. But other than that, this is again, episode 11. We're gonna keep doing this, and for now, I'm gonna keep doing my video diary here, and I'll probably, like I said, keep this format for a while. But make sure you continue to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.